Hey everybody, Ethan here, and you're on my side of the room. I know it's been a while. I've been playing lots of Honkai Star Rail. And now, as of this past week, Wuthering Waves from Kuro Games has launched. Now, this is not at all a sponsored video. This is just matter-of-factly me telling you this. But I thought I'd take a moment because everybody and their dog is doing a video about Wuthering Waves, and I thought, why not me? And plus, it's been a while since I've sat here on the camera and talked to you guys. So before I get started, how about hitting that like button and subscribing for more of my videos and encouraging me to make more videos about things like Star Rail and Wuthering Waves. That is your bag, baby. I'm here for that, for you. So with that out of the way, let's get started talking about Wuthering Waves and what's going on with Honkai Star Rail by comparison. With Star Rail, I was not there at the launch. I waited a few months and then did it, and then kicked myself that I didn't start sooner. But, oh well, I'm finally finding my footing and finally making up for lost time with the game. Whereas with Wuthering Waves, it's brand new to lots of people, even if they did the betas, which I didn't. And it's been interesting to feel around the game and figure out like what their words for things mean and what to do and where to go and how to do it. So right off the bat, the major differences between Star Rail and Wuthering Waves is Star Rail is turn-based and it's not open world by any stretch of the imagination. And it's funny because Penacony was the newest set of maps and people were complaining that the maps were huge. And I kind of liked it. Like at first was you had to get used to it because you're so used to these smaller maps, and suddenly it's like, wow! Layers upon layers of map. Especially like the Golden Dream is massive compared to like Herta Space Station, which is like this. My feeling with Star Rail is more is better. With Wuthering Waves, it's much more of an open map. To the point where not only is there lots of mileage to cover, but you can like interact with things that you can't possibly interact with in Star Rail. So as an example, you can go into someone's office, and whereas in Star Rail it's pretty cut and dry. Walk up to the desk, talk to the person, turn around, walk out, and that's really all you can do. Here in Wuthering Waves, you can crawl all over the walls, you can get into the plants, you can dig around, all kinds of stuff, and maybe there's something to get out of it for doing it, or you're just making a nuisance of yourself crawling all over the walls, but the point is you could. And in the case of just the larger place, like the city or whatever, you can end up in the plants and then meanwhile you're farming because there's all these things to farm while you're in there. And it's not reserved for like the rural areas of the game to go out and find farmable items there. It could be anywhere. There's chests all over the place. I love it in Star Rail. I love finding where the chests are at. And so with Wuthering Waves, there's even more chests to find over there. So to me, I'm in like farming and discovery heaven. Whereas, let's be real, there's a very vocal contingent on places like Reddit and YouTube that are all up in arms about the game, Wuthering Waves specifically, about how terrible it is and it needs to be deleted and they never should have launched it, and the world owes them millions of dollars for their pain and suffering. And I just think that a lot of it's hyperbolic crap, just keeping it real. That's not shots fired, that's just the fact, Jack. And that's why I have 10 views and they have millions and millions. But anyway, Star Rail makes mistakes. It's in my little developer email things that keep coming out saying, well, we kind of messed up the latest release and we got to fix this bug and that bug. But so it kind of happens. I used to play Mech Arena. There used to be updates about that they messed up this and messed up that. So I think it just kind of comes with the territory that if you're going to have some kind of mobile game or whatever, there will be bugs and screw-ups. In the case of Wuthering Waves, I do agree certain fundamental things probably should have been worked out before launch, or there should have been a beta 3 instead of just 1 and 2. But we're here at launch now. It's them scrambling to play catch up. they've been sending out a lot of mea culpa gifts, and I'm like, cool, great. more, please. But I'm not mad at that. I mean, if they want to give me free polls and stuff because they think their game is awful based on their feedback they got, then I'm not going to say no to that. But what I'm here to say is Wuthering Waves is a very ambitious game. Way more so than Star Rail in its scope and breadth. But to be fair, on the Star Rail side, Star Rail is infinitely superior in terms of production, and my God, the music, the characters, the whole bit. It's a very tough act to follow for me to go from that to Wuthering Waves. One of my reasons for not doing it originally was when I was watching people do the beta footage, is it looked very dingy, and it seemed as though you start at a starting line and you run through the map, and there's a definite finish line where you beat the game. You beat the final boss, you're done. You can delete the game now because there's just no reason to play Wuthering Waves anymore, and that's not how it is. It could be because either people use the term endgame content to mean different things than I think it means, or maybe the way the beta was like that. Maybe it was that you did start at point A and then there is a definite point B that you are fighting towards to finish the game and then you're done. But no, this is very much open world with room to grow and more characters coming and more story and a whole bit. Another thing about it that I'm starting to kind of get a grip on. Wuthering Waves is supposed to be post-apocalyptic, and they do a very good job of rendering that. So you can be like in a meadow full of butterflies, and you pass over the ridge, and the next thing you see is like completely torn up expressway, and like burned out cars everywhere and stuff. It's crazy, like the level of detail in the world building that they did, and I thought the world building in Star Rail was amazing. And this is no knock on Star Rail, because I do think their world building was really amazing, and they put a lot of thought and effort into their backgrounds and stuff. It's just that every time you think like, oh, I'm going to just hit a brick wall here, like they're going to like say, oh, you can't possibly progress any further than this borderline. No, you can jump off a cliff like, well, I'm dead, and then you'll float with your glider down to the bottom, and there is a bottom, and it's like, and there's treasure and plants and stuff to farm. It's crazy. So in terms of playability and interest over time, it's definitely there. I'm starting to get a handle of who the characters are and which ones seem better than others, which ones seem more thought out than others. Some of the feedback in Reddit was, give the game some time to progress before making harsh judgments. Apparently a lot of people were making these harsh judgments like in the first 5 minutes. And they do have quite a bit of exposition to a fault. And someone was saying, why don't they just like show you rather than tell you? Well, I mean, to be fair, even Star Rail can get on these jags of massive exposition. But the difference is that Star Rail has a skip button, and Wuthering Waves didn't. They do now, as of this filming, which is May 25th, Saturday, U.S. I was doing like a minor quest today, and I'm like, hey, I can skip the dialogue, and I hit it, and they're like, you sure? I mean, you may want to kind of know what's going on to know what it is you're doing. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But some people are like, story mode, I don't care about any story. I just want to kick butt. Like, okay, well then you do you. And I'm going to do me. And it's funny as I'm wondering, like, man, what are these YouTubers, like they're on level 20 right now and I'm on level 4. And they're like, I've been doing it for 20 hours. Like, I've been doing it for 20 hours. And I come out with level 4 and you're at level 20. Yeah, they're doing story mode. I'm not. I'm so knee-deep in world exploring that it's like, quest, story mode, whatever. And I finally did it, so I got up to like level 17. Enough that it was like, things are appearing in my app and stuff that weren't there before, and I can do more like daily quests and things. There are some areas of improvement in Wuthering Waves. One is they really do need to fix the typos. Some of the voiceover is clunky. There's just no way around it. It's also very inconsistent. Like, either you have to like sit through every single sentence, or suddenly it's like they'll just auto skip, like, yeah, you don't want to hear this anymore, and they'll just skip to the next line. Like, well, there really was more stuff they were saying, but it's just like an auto skipped. One thing that Star Rail's funny about is if you just stand around and do nothing, especially on the battlefield, because you can, and it's turn-based, they'll say things like, should have brought a chair, or, you know, well, I didn't know we had all kinds of time to stand around on the battlefield, and so they'll really goad you into playing the game. With Wuthering Waves, it's real time, and the combat is, and the rest of the game is. And if you stand around and derp, especially if you're not in a safe area of some sort, Star Rail is great about telling you you're in a safe area. You have to kind of surmise what these safe areas might be when you're in Wuthering Waves. But the thing is, like, you could be standing in a grassy meadow surrounded by butterflies, and the next thing you know, you're surrounded by bad guys, and they're beating you up, and they will beat you up to death if you don't do something about it. Up to and including, you know, hitting the pause button, which there isn't one, but if you go into, like, your inventory or something, then they'll take a break from beating you up while you look at your inventory. So that's the solution there. I prefer turn-based. I prefer autoplay, keeping it real, just because I can passively do a lot of the farming and other jazz. But this isn't that kind of game. And by this, I mean Wuthering Waves. There's lots of farming, but it's very active. It's not passive, dumb farming like in Star Rail. There's the calyx, where you stand there and say, okay, for 6 times I'm going to get lots of money, or lots of level-up materials. With Wuthering Waves, it's like, well, if you want that stuff, hit the map and see if you can find it somewhere. Because, you know, there's chests laying around, all kinds of stuff, and things hiding under other things, and so on and so forth. And you got to really get your hands dirty and find it and go do it. Music-wise, which was my big thing for Star Rails, I love the music. I love it from the start of the intro screen right up to the latest boss battle. The music is just epic. It's unbelievable. Wuthering Waves has music. It's not particularly memorable music, it just has music. A lot of this I'm willing to kind of look the other way. The reason for that is that because it's in its infancy, and because I recognize how ambitious Wuthering Waves is, it's a lot to take in, and a lot of work to do, to the point where, do they need fixes? Yes. Could they have done it better at launch? Yes. Did they? No. But I see the potential there, and I can see the improvements already. And that has nothing to do with being slathered on with all these characters, or polls anyway, not so much characters. It's been interesting to learn the new language of, like, what is what. So Star Rail has Stellar Jade, Wuthering Waves has Astrite, and then you kind of wonder, like, it's more obvious in Star Rail, like, what certain things are for, whereas I've got a bunch of Astrite and I have no idea what I would use it for. And people are on YouTube like, don't use your Astrite. Like, I won't, because I don't know what to use it on. I guess you could do the famous thing like you could do in Star Rail and convert it into polls. It's too early in the game for that. I don't need to, like, load up my roster when I'm still trying to figure out how the buttons work. Another thing that's very different with Wuthering Waves than Star Rail is turn-based, and it does get very samey. The mechanics of it does get very samey. Let's just keep it real. I think that's like the Achilles heel of Star Rail, is that I can see the potential for burnout, where it's like, okay, story mode, then the same mechanics over and over of the turn-based combat, the end. Whereas with Wuthering Waves, not only is it like live action combat and a bunch of button pushing and figuring out what the combos are and then upgrading your weapons and all this stuff that you normally don't have to concern yourself with in Star Rail, the enemies adapt to your playing style. That's been an issue. I tend to moose my way into the battlefield and do whatever, and it's costing me because now the tougher goons are showing up, and they're like the Borg. They already know, like, yeah, it's this guy, and this is what he likes to do. So they already are countering it before I do my usual moves. Like, okay, and then I die. Great, cool. Or I have to beat a hasty retreat from that big battlefield and rethink this. Now, as a quick side note, I want to really give a shout out to a channel called Kets, K-E-T-S. I will link it in the description. I will also link my boy Nutty. He's great. With Kets, I've never seen somebody play a video game with such unbridled joy as he does. And if you haven't seen his channel, you are missing out hard on. If you were getting jaded and burned out on Star Rail, you will very much rekindle that flame watching Kets. Kets' thing is kind of like Wuthering Waves did with their launch. I'm just going to do it. And people in the comments are like, how are you going in there with no healer? Just going to do it. And then he'll be like, all right, well, I got killed. So what? I'll go back in there and try again. This time I'll bring these characters and I got killed. Okay, I'll come back and I'll bring these characters and keep messing with the combinations until he finally gets it right. And he's like, yeah, I guess I'd probably do great if I would, like, read the instructions, but who's got time for that? And I'm kind of that way with Wuthering Waves, where, like, they really want you to learn all these button combinations. Like, I just want to hit autoplay and just, like, do laundry and stuff, and that's not that kind of game. So sooner or later, I'm going to have to break down and learn the button combinations to get anywhere with the game, because it's going to reach a point where I just won't be able to progress until I really understand it. And moosing your way through it is only going to get you so far. The same is true with Star Rail, even though it's turn-based. They're getting clever about the people who moose it in, and they either nerf the character, that's the thing, or they design it so that the enemies are built in such a way that moosing isn't an option. And they're like, no, you have to finesse your way through this, and you need shields a lot, so you need a shielder. Like, oh man, I don't have a shielder. Well, you died. Like, oh man. And you kind of learn, like, how you have to adapt to this. But I was not burned out, but I was very much a victim of that sense of perfectionism. Like, well, if I go into this level, I got to beat it. I got to beat it right now. I mean, and I got to do it on autoplay because lazy. Unless it's one of them where they don't let you. But most of the time you can autoplay Star Rail. And I was getting murdered, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong, and I kept reading all these tier lists, and I kept reading all these strategy guides, and all these farming guides, and all this other stuff. And Kets comes along, and he was like, he's not reading any of this stuff. It's like, oh, well, let me just try this combination of characters. Oh, that worked. Oh, where I was so close. It looks like if I would have just used this person instead of that person, their gear is such that I think it would put me over the top, and it does. And so, again, if you check out Catch, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm trying to apply that mentality to Wuthering Waves. So it doesn't daunt me that I lost. Yeah, I lost. I don't know what I'm doing. But you start to kind of learn, like, even little pop-up things are like, would you like to learn how to dodge attacks? Like, I think probably I should do that now, because right now my answer thing is moose, 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 and then they go, hey. Another thing that they do, this is a downside of Wuthering, is it's not very intuitive. But what they'll do is, there is a such thing as biting off more than you can chew. And you can attack stuff in the open world that you're not ready for, because it's not time to do it. And if you just encounter it in the wild, it'll be like doof, and either kill you or get you down to like 1 HP to where you're like, I need to warp away and do anything else but this. Whereas then the quest comes along, they're like, let's go over to this field, and then it's that thing again. Like, oh, well, you mean the thing that went doof? And they're like, but now use the magic spell of conundrum or whatever. Like, oh, I didn't know about that, or I didn't have it before, or whatever. And then suddenly you can beat the boss. So it was interesting, that difference. The motorcycle-looking dude that's getting a lot of airtime these days. I think I encountered him in the wild, or else it was like story mode, where it was like they rig it so that you lose. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I lose, I stink, my characters aren't high enough in the level, I don't have awesome weapons, whatever. And they're like, no, we just need to do all this pre-work to set the battlefield more in your favor. Like, oh, well, that's totally different. And then, ta-da, win. So, but it's not obvious that's what's going on. What could Wuthering Waves to do about that to make it more obvious? I don't know, maybe more context clues, maybe, I don't know what. See, the cottage industry that surrounds games like Star Rail hasn't really blossomed up yet. So really my only source for that is either YouTube and a lot of hyperbolic videos and tier lists or Reddit. That's really all I got. Hoyoverse has their Hoyoverse app that has a forum built in, and there's all kinds of strategy guides and all kinds of farming guides and all kinds of character guides and all kinds of just people in the forum saying, man, I keep losing. And they're like, ever heard of a healer? Stuff like that. Or, I don't know why you're bringing this character that doesn't do any damage against that kind of enemy. So, yeah, you're probably scoring 0 points. And they're going doof. And maybe if you bring someone else, even if they were at level 0, you would do more than who you're bringing. Wuthering Waves is different in that way that you could glom onto a specific character and kind of like just run the game off of that one character to a point. I would say that's true of like a DPS. A healer, I don't think I could take Vereen, the healer, and like just run around and clear the game. I don't think that's quite the case, and that's not really what she's built for. But on Star Rail terms, you wouldn't just put Lynx or Natasha on your team and say, oh, I'm done, I don't need any other people, even though there's 3 open slots. Wuthering is one on many. It's not like you have your little crowd of people. You're the Trailblazer, or they call it the Rover. There's slot 2, which could be another DPS usually, and then slot 3, which is probably a healer or a sustain of some sort. So right now I have the Rover, I've got Encore, and I've got Vereen, because I'm awesome. But honestly, because Encore is kind of a learning curve, it was Rover, Yang Yang, and Vereen. And Verena? I don't know. Anyway, the green healer chick, but you just kind of bounce in and out of those. And then they have what's called intro skill, where there's a skill that triggers when they come on the field based on that, and then there's a skill they do when they come off. So the thing that's nice is you can do Vereen, whatever, do her ultimate, and then immediately switch to the character who's down to like no HP, and then they'll get a stronger HP bar as an example. Or in the run of her doing stuff like HP will generate for everybody, and then when you do switch, it's like tag team wrestling, where they come in like all fresh and ready to kick ass. So all this being said, I'm going to definitely noodle around with Wuthering Waves some more. I'm going to do it after I'm done filming this video, keeping it real. But I'd like your feedback about Wuthering Waves. Have you tried it? Are you interested in it? Would you like to hear more from someone like me about my experience with it versus somebody who's jaded and bitter and full of hyperbole? How's that for a non-choice, right? Another one is, let me know what your favorite character is in the game, if you do play it. On Star Rail, if you play that, then who's your favorite character there? I used to really like Jinglu. There was a video recently about, man, she's really fallen off. And it's not because they nerfed the character. I think they just kind of like rigged the game so that there's not lots for her to be effective against. and the meta keeps changing. Right now, the meta is developing in Wuthering Waves, so that's part of it, and it's kind of giving these usual experts fits because they don't really know what to tell you about the meta, and like they make these tier lists, but everybody's S tier is different, everybody's A tier is different, and they're all dealing with the same like 10 or 14 characters, and they don't really know what to say about a lot of them yet because it's too new. So in that way, I'm very excited about this new thing, this new world to explore, these new terms to learn and whatnot. But I will definitely check back and let you know how it's going. I will definitely check back with some more HSR content. And I don't know, I might break my moratorium on music content for reasons I'll get into later. But right now I'm focused on stupid video games, so here we are. All that being said, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.